as a class, we've looked at a number of instances of black and brown kind of cooperation. I really like what you said about trust, because it reminds me of Derek Bell in Silent Covenants. I don't know if y'all read it, but it's a great book. And he was a civil rights attorney, and later he went on to found critical race theory. And one of the things that he said as he reflected on his work as a civil rights attorney in the South, I mean, going from community to community, was that it was triumphant just to resist, right? Just to respond to racism and to white supremacy. That was triumphant. And I think that he's capturing the kind of community building that we've been learning about, and how, maybe we don't, in our lifetimes get to where we would like to get to, but the very process of it is just as important as what we're pursuing, right, as the goal. And so I think there is victory to be experienced in the struggle, even if not everything pans out the way that we want it to, when we want it to. And now we find ourselves, it's interesting, as Black Brown Dialogues, we kind of had this beginning of, well, what do we do? And we have the BBDP Next Gen group that's formed, and maybe y'all can talk about it in a little bit. Jules and Daniela, y'all have been very important to Leah, and I think you've been part of some of those conversations. Maybe others in the class, I'm not sure. They don't tell me what they're up to, but then the session hit, right? And then the session hit, and that kind of arranged things for us. And I think that's really interesting, by the way, just as an idea, that here we are trying to create, we're trying to build, and then there's all these weapons of mass distraction. And in today's press conference, that was one of the things that Representative Ron Reynolds mentioned, and it was a press conference, maybe you attended it, on DEI and the attack on our universities and our faculty and our students, our curriculum that's happening right now through these bills in Texas, Senate Bill 16, Senate Bill 17 and 18, and then their House companion bills, right? And instead of having a conversation that we should be having on the environment, climate change, gun safety, right? I mean, you can just go down the list. We're having these other conversations about a solution ostensibly for a problem that isn't there, right? If anything, DEI, the evidence is overwhelming that it's positive for being innovative, inventive, creative. Diverse teams are more powerful than teams that are not diverse in the world of work or in the academy. So we've pivoted. I think it's been helpful. And I know, Gary, we've been talking about strategy. What thoughts do you have going forward? I mean, we did something good today with the press conference. A lot more needs to happen. What are your thoughts about where we're headed with DEI in the legislature right now?
Well, I think one of the things we should know is we're not out of the woods. I'm with Emilio. I'm going to be optimistic, but we're not out of the woods. What we have to understand is that you never underestimate your opposition. And Dan Patrick is a master. And what he's done with the Senate, I have never seen. He has complete and total control over the state Senate. And this last time we were able to beat them on several bills with allies over on the House side who were not that extreme. And towards the end of the last special session, he came up with understanding of, well, I'll just hold up your bills over here that any of you that's voting against my bills on the House side, I'm going to kill anything you have on the Senate side. So we look at things like that, and you understand that people have real power. And this time, they just hit us with another one. We were out there, and Dr. Valenzuela had identified all the DEI bills, and so she was already helping to form alliances. And then we get a call one day about 7 o'clock at night. I was on the elliptical machine working out, and get this call that the next morning, they're gonna have Rider 186 to be heard. And the reps didn't know until that evening themselves, about 5 o'clock or so. And they love to pull shenanigans. They did it during the special session where they give you almost no notice of an upcoming hearing. The Senate has cut public testimony now down to 2 minutes. And during the pandemic, they were requiring you to show up in person and not be able to give virtual testimony. So they'll pull anything out of the hat they can to make them win. And so the idea of the timing is one issue. We need to understand that we don't know what else that the lieutenant governor has in store. And I say the lieutenant governor because, no disrespect to the governor, but I think the master is the lieutenant governor. I mean, I'm just going to be straight up about it. That's who the master is the lieutenant governor. And so what we need to do is emphasize the House of Representatives. And so we need to be able to come up with a strategy for trying to reach 76 votes over there. And that's what we're working on today. And so we know if there are 88 Republican votes, you've got to at least peel off 13 of those to have any chance of prevailing. That's a lot of Republican votes. Now, the Speaker is not on the wavelength with the Lieutenant Governor. The Speaker is someone you can talk with, but we realize that as powerful as the Speaker is, the Lieutenant Governor is more powerful. So the one thing that's missing from the quotient is getting allies. Because, Martin Luther King talked about that. We couldn't win this thing ourselves. It's going to take all good people coming together. And what's really missing right now is each one of the news conferences will have black folk and brown folk, but we need to have other folk and not just white Democrats. We need to have people that are conservatives, people that are religious, but maybe see these issues of common decency the same way we do. We need to be able to work the House the best way we can, because and let me give this one example. Doc, when I go over this last session, and I told many of our members this, it's different from other sessions when you go over and you engage a rep or a senator. I know you have 6 or 7 people that work over there now. You go to this, it's almost like talking to a chair, because they have no authority to modify or change or do anything different from what they're told to do. So they're like a 2-year-old that's been told, you sit here and you wait till I tell you what to do. And so that makes it extremely difficult in terms of trying to identify what people have the character, the wherewithal, or whatever to stand up for what's right and not worry about who's in leadership and what leadership will do to them. And that's easier said than done. A few sessions ago, we got so many things done, and Doc, we had so many victories over there, even with Republican leadership. But that's when we could go sit down with Republican reps and senators, and the reasonable ones, we'd cut a deal and we'd come out and we'd win. We had so many criminal justice bills that we prevailed on. We had a great racial profiling bill that we got adopted, hate crimes bill. I mean, things like that we're able to do with bipartisan support. But you just can't, they just changed the landscape. They looked at that, and the extremists have gotten control of their party, and you are persona non grata if you stand up. So that's what we need to do, Doc. We need to come up with a strategy to identify 13 votes on the Republican side in the House where we can win. Long-term strategy, we need to do like the other side. I saw the fellow on Rachel Maddow the other day, and I already had this thought. I told my wife this. But we always think in terms of, people progressive think in terms of specific campaigns. Okay, and right-wingers think in terms of movements that take over power and control. And we need to have a long-term strategy because, see, what they're doing now with critical race theory, with the invading the classroom, they understand that truth prevails and that our truth will win out in a debate or a discussion. So when you can't win the battle on truth, you have to pass a law requiring you to elevate untruth, and at the same time you're elevating untruth, you prevent the teaching of truth. And so it's pretty fascinating, but that's really what they're doing. We actually have the law invading the classroom to uplift them, because the more and more public school children understand the real history and what all people have brought to this country and to the world, we could have a whole different world. And believe it or not, what we need to understand when we talk about Martin Luther King's dream, many people don't share that dream. And we think because it's great and we get out there on MLK's Day and the day of the 55th anniversary of assassination, many people don't share that dream. And they're going to do everything that they can to make sure we don't get that dream, that we never accomplish that. So we should never forget that. I am shocked where we are today, because I'm one of those that was a kid in the 70s, and you guys' age, and I was going to college and everything, and we were getting these victories, and the Supreme Court was saying you can do this or that. We're opening things up. I never thought we were going to have to fight the same battles today that we fought back then. But evil didn't stop working, and this time they figured it out, just like the lieutenant governor, and they're trying to do it to where they're going to consolidate this whole power. And you guys were talking about January 6th earlier. That's the whole idea. The whole idea there, it really is a revolution that's been going on in this country for quite some time. And I know I'm talking too long, but the two things that I think I need to mention is that